don't even want to calculate the number of runs, the number of wickets, that's for another day. But you will not get a more cricketing evening than this. And I think it's only appropriate. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. I'm also to say thank you very much to a few of our sponsors. 200 Not Out, ITC Maratha have put this all together for us, and Collectabilia. Okay, we've got more coming up. The class of, depending whether you want to call it 96 or 98, depending on whether they played together for the first time or whether they made their debuts that year. But ladies and gentlemen, we've got the entire class of 96 who made their debut together at this time. And can I call them in, well, maybe order in which they went out to bat most times? Number 3, Rahul Dravid. Number 5, Sourav Ganguly. And gently slipping in at number 6, the very, very special man himself. And then all those runs at number 4. You might want to come to your own function, Sachin. Come now. And if you'll pardon me 10 seconds, I'm going to get out of this frame because I don't think I belong to this frame for a while. Just look at that. That is Indian batting at its peak. You put Sehwag in there and there it is. Who's the numbers man? How many runs between the two of you? If you ask Sourav who scored more, he'll tell you. But how many runs between all of you?
Sourav knows everything. I've forgotten. I've stopped playing almost 6 years now.
No, the 4 of you are still together. How much fun was it, Rahul? I mean, we are looking at one of the greatest quartets in Test history. How much fun was it?
Yeah, I think it was great memories. I think it's the beauty of sort of having been retired and being able to sit back and think about some of these things. When you're in it, obviously it's great fun and you have great memories, but it's also extremely competitive and you're trying to do well, you're trying to win Test matches. So sometimes you don't have an opportunity to sit back and reflect. Just to be a part of a quartet like this, for me was very, very special. And obviously, you had someone like Viru in this group as well. He, batted with us for 10 years. So it was a really special 5 to be a part of, simply because I think we challenged each other, we pushed each other, and I think personally, at least, I think I learned a lot from these guys and batting with them.
Saurav and Sachin knew each other from an under 15 camp, didn't you?
Yeah, that was the camp Vasu was talking about, Vasu sir, Indore. And that was the first time I saw him, and what struck me was how much he wanted to play the game. We used to finish practice, actually, Vasu sir had to take him out of the nets. He was told that there are other people who are supposed to bat. There are about 20.
Was one of them left-handed waiting for his turn?
Yeah, but there were 20 of us.
Okay.
And we had to get an opportunity to bat, and it was hard to take him out of the nets. And the best thing was we would finish training by afternoon, and say about 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, and then he and Vinod would keep practicing with the tennis ball, and we would go back to the dormitories. We were staying in the stadium. So that struck me at a very young age, that how much he wanted to bat, how much he wanted to play. Then I saw him in the under-17 in Kanpur, where he got 175. And what stood out for me was the bat he used. And how old was he then? About 15? 15 or 16? And it's one of the heaviest.
Well, if you were 15, he was 15, I mean.
Yeah, one of the heaviest cricket bats. One of the heaviest cricket bats I've seen ever. You can understand, you grow up, and we heard about Clive Lloyd or the West Indians use heavy bats. But at the age of 15 to pick such a heavy bat, it was a Pakistani bat, Ihsan, if I still remember. To pick that bat and bring it down was really, really special, I thought.
Did you think, I mean, each of these 3 keeps coming into the book at various times, and they stay in the book for a very long time. Did you think this gentleman next to you would have 300-run partnerships, this under-15 campmate of yours, you'd open the batting together for India, and then this young man, you'd make, 6,000 plus runs batting together? Is it all a blur? Is it coming back now?
You see, with Saurav, we started playing together in 1984 or 85, I think. 85, we went to...
Just about turned teenagers.
I was, I think,
He was my roommate in
14.
the MRF Base Academy. Trust me, he was. And I still remember on the Mount Road in Chennai, we two never seen each other, and he used to walk in the night. And the first night, two separate beds, and he was
Sorry, we
sleeping.
were roommates because you didn't want to sleep alone.
Whatever.
Scared.
Whatever. No, in those days we didn't get single rooms, and it's an honest confession. And one night I just saw him. He got up from his bed, walked around his room, and came back to sleep. So I thought he must have gone to the toilet because I myself was half asleep. So I'd let it go. The next night I saw the same thing again, and I asked him that night. I said, "What's happening?" He said, "Yeah, I have this issue." So I used to be awake for the rest of the night.
Vivesh, you were the
Like me, who was not yet part of the Indian team, just that experience, felt, really like $1 million experience, which you would never ever dream of getting. So I think I was very fortunate that since then, I was able to, build this friendship with him. And I remember even my first test match with the team, he was the captain. He just made me feel so welcome, made me feel comfortable. And it happens to all the cricketers who for the first time come into the Indian changing room. They are in awe of Sachin. Just watch him from close quarters, because all this time before coming to the Indian team, they're reading about him, they're seeing him, they're probably wanting to meet him, which is so difficult for a lot of youngsters. So I think I was in awe of him, but he made me comfortable, and that's what is important.
It is true, isn't it, that when you went out to bat in Sydney, just before you went out, you were sleeping on the dining table?
Again, that time, Dada was my room partner. And this time, again, he was sleeping, and I was practicing my drills at night because I was going to bat the next day. I stayed awake, till almost 2:30 in the night. And I was thinking about how I'm going to bat the next day, and standing in front of the mirror, I was practicing, doing my own things, and I didn't realize that Dada was awake quietly watching me. So the next morning,
Tell me, how could
I
you
was
sleep?
sleepy next morning.
I'll just interrupt. How could you sleep when all the lights in your room was on and somebody was practicing? All you had to do was to close your eyes and wait for him to sleep.
So before going into bat, I was really sleepy, and I woke up at the same time, and I told Dada that, Dada, मैं सोने वाला हूँ थोड़ी देर के लिए. So just inside the dressing room, from where you could also watch the game, there is a big dining table there. So on that dining table, I slept. I slept for a good half an hour or so. I said, अगर कुछ होता है तो बताना मेरे को. But that's where I thought, I needed to rest a little bit to be able to do something special.
Upwards of 6,000 runs, Rahul, the two of you chatted a lot together, I'm sure. Is it true that you spoke to each other in Marathi only when you were playing against Pakistan?
No, I think I guess we sort of conversed in a lot of languages. But yeah, I think sort of when we were in the middle, I think we sort of tended to speak a lot in Marathi as well. We were not really, I think you didn't need to converse very much after you batted, with him for a long time. But I remember when I first initially started batting with him, I would bat at 3 and he would come in at 4. And I was this sort of young kid, and even though he was my age, he was a 7 years senior. He was my captain in the third test match that I played, the one at Ahmedabad, or the one at Delhi, in fact, and against Australia. And he would walk in, and I would be a bit sort of nervous. Already you're quite nervous as a youngster, and Sachin Tendulkar is coming in to bat with you. Firstly, don't get him run out, otherwise you're lynched. So that's the first thought. But then anyway, he comes in and he sort of, he'll ask you, what's happening? What do you think? And you're thinking, this is a guy who's like already the best batsman in the world. He's played a lot of, he's like scored over 10 test hundreds, or he played a lot of test matches. He's my captain. Is he taking the mickey, or do I really have to tell him, is he trying to like play the fool with me or to check me out? And so I would be a bit nervous, but in time sort of realized that was his real, humility, as Lakshman mentions it. There was that eagerness when he came in to want to know what is happening, what are the wicket conditions like, what's he bowling, does he have a dusra, does he have this thing? So initially it took me a bit of time to actually muster up the confidence to actually, tell him that, I think, this is what's happening. It took me a few runs and a bit of confidence. But initially I would be like, everything's okay, don't worry. I'm sure you'll deal with it, don't worry.
The story he tells about you in the book, VVS, when he was fighting his way through. You don't normally use the expression fighting his way through for Sachin. And we're going to talk about that in detail to Ajit later on. And he was getting his 241. And he says one of his biggest problems when he was getting to the 241, and he was in denial, I'm not going to play the drive, I'm not going to play this. And he says at the other end, this guy was hitting boundaries for fun. 178 not out partnership, he was just hitting and he's telling himself, no, don't. And you were just screaming boundaries at the other end, you're making it difficult for him, he says.
Again, it's humiliating, but I still remember the chat we had at the end of the Melbourne Test match. And I still remember in the dressing room there was a separate room where we could have the television where we could see the statistics of the players. And I remember Sachin came and both of us were alone there. And he just came and discussed. And during our career, there were a lot of occasions when we used to have these chats. And he told that he was playing brilliantly, but he was just getting out in freakish manner. If you remember, he got out down the leg side to Brett Lee in the first innings of Melbourne. And then we went to Sydney. He went ahead of me because he was batting at number 4. I going, he was, I think, on 30 or 40. But what really struck me was his control. And I've never ever seen any batsman in my career who could control his instincts so much as what I saw. And I give example of that innings to everyone I talk, especially the youngsters, because usually we have game plan, usually we know what are the areas we are struggling and we don't want to play that shots initially. But once you get in, and you're able to see the ball better, you're judging the pace of the wicket better or the bounce of the wicket better, then you start to play all your shots. But here was a person, he was on 100, Simon Catich is coming to bowl, Damian Martin is coming to bowl, and he doesn't play a single cover drive. And I've never ever experienced that or seen that before. And I mean, that's probably one of the most scintillating innings of Sachin, and which I always mentioned to him. The other inning was the one against Pakistan in Chennai, where he was having severe back spasm, but he still continued to play and dominate the Pakistan bowling attack. There he could get over the pain and still continue to play. And here, he was able to control his instincts and still continue to bat the way he did. And that shows what kind of shots he had in his book. He completely cut down the cover area, but still was able to get more than 200.
Sachin, was it a bit like you're fasting and he's having all the prawns and crabs at the other end?
Not just in Sydney, generally it was like that, where half the world would be thinking that Lakshman is going to play cover drive and he'd be hitting through mid-wicket for a boundary, and that includes, the likes of Shane Warne. And I mean, I've not seen anyone play against Shane Warne, consistently hitting him against the spin on the rise. I mean, not many can do. Rather, I would say that the only one who did that consistently was him. And, the special partnership between him and Jam was incredible. I mean, at the end of the third day, I remember in the evening we were all feeling low and all that. But 4 days effort between the two of them, I think they were competing who's going to outclass each other, and both just kept smashing boundaries. And the end of the 4th day, we started thinking differently, and it was because of their mega effort where, they had done something really, really special to turn around that series.
I mean,
Lachi was part of it.
this is now starting to sound a bit like a Rajshri movie, where everybody is very happy with everybody else and everything is nice. There must have been the odd disagreements as well over 15 years.
Yeah, I mean, obviously people...
How did you handle that?
No, people talk about Multan all the time.
When was the last time you were asked about Multan? 5 minutes ago? 10 minutes ago?
Yeah, no. I was telling people that every time I answered the question about Multan, I got a rupee, I would be a multi-millionaire.
Just for the sake of everyone wondering what you're talking about, Multan was the 194 declaration.
I would think you didn't need to mention that. This is an audience you've just talked after the start. Look, I mean, when you have 16 years together as me and Sachin have had, sure, there are going to be times when
Was it that long, 16?
Yeah, I mean, 16 years together as players. There are going to be times when you're going to have the odd, I guess, disagreement, or you're going to agree to disagree, and that's going to happen, and that's part of, I guess, being a cricketer in a high-pressure environment, playing for your country, trying to do your best. But I think along the way, there are also some really good memories, and there are really some really good moments. And the fact that, we can sit here today and we're still friends after 16 years, at least for me. I mean, I know that I'd like to believe that there's that,
I
mutual-
think so too.
I guess that
No, at least for you, Jam. No, I think, let me tell you, there are so many disagreements that we,
Yeah, it's
we
not
have
the
in
only
the
one.
dressing room. It just happens so behind the closed doors, and the whole world doesn't get to see all those things. This one happened on the field, but that doesn't mean that, we are fighting and we are not talking to each other. I mean, we sort of closed that chapter immediately, and we've had many match-winning partnerships after that. And above all, Jam and I continue to be good friends. So I think that is what really matters. Disagreements, I mean, each and every cricketer sitting here in this room would have had some stage in his life. It just so that this happened,
I'm sure that, yeah.
I think the greatest thing for me on that particular day is obviously, I had a conversation with Sachin before the day started, and we discussed it and what might have happened. But the end of the day, and I think the abiding memory for me in that particular Test match is me giving Sachin Tendulkar the ball on the last day that day to bowl and over, and he got Moin Khan out, and we walked off as a team celebrating that wicket, and for me that was what it was all about. India were on the verge of an historic Test win, winning a Test match in Pakistan for the first time. And Sachin being able to sort of forget all of that and focus on what was the most important thing, as he's done so many often in his career, which is try and win Test matches for India, and with the ball, and just to see that joyful glee. And for us as a team to be able to celebrate that, for me as a captain that day was just brilliant.
So in a sense, you took the wicket that justified the declaration.
No, I mean, but Jam stopped me the next morning. I only bowled 1 over. Jam, come on.
This was the next day after the yes.
Yeah, just to add on that, Arsha, I think for me the most memorable part of that journey was, while there were agreements or disagreements, everything was for the benefit of the team. And that's why I think we were all able to achieve a lot of success, not only in India, but even overseas. And all of us, not only 4 of us, but the team which played during that time, took a lot of pride in playing for the country. And I think what was important is when we went out there in the middle, it was not a competition amongst ourselves, but a competition against the opposition. We wanted to do well against the opposition. So I think that is the most important thing.
So sort of when only one of you had to open the batting in one-day cricket, how did you resolve that? When only one of you could go out
Well,
to
it
open the
was
batting?
him. It was he who had to open. I had to bat somewhere else. And I've done that 3, 4, 5. He would open and I bat somewhere else.
Yeah, I batted a couple of times. I batted 4, right?
Yes, we did. I have done as well. He's done as well.
You had to always take strike also.
But one good thing is that I had.
Always to take strike as well.
I did one thing. I remember taking strike. I wasn't scoring runs, so I came up and told him, "Sach, can you take strike? I'm just struggling just to change the luck. 2 or 3 games." He said, "No, I never done that. You do it." So I said, "Fine, I'll do it." I was captain then. I was the only captain.
मेरा तो
who had
वैसे ही
to-
रन नहीं हो रहा था
I
दादा
was
तो
the
मेरे
only
को लगा कि
captain.
मैं वहीं पे खड़ा रहूं.
I was the only captain who had to ask from my players, "Can I do this?" And no, it's true. So we both walked out. I was pretty annoyed. I said, "Come on, for one day you can do it." But I didn't say anything. We walked up. We both went past each other, and I just went and stood at the non-striker end. And then just find your place wherever you want to bat. So he went and took guard at the other end and played the first ball.
And took a single first ball, right?
I can't remember what happened. No, I think he got some runs.
Which team is this?
I think the problem is when he took strike for
बराबर
India.
सोच के बोलना.
I think
देखेंगे
the
लोग.
problem, it was against Pakistan, I think. I wasn't scoring runs.
No,
this season.
there have been times. In fact, I remember we were playing in Guwahati, and I was batting with Dada. Shoaib bowls a short pitch ball where, about 5-7 feet away from me, it swings a little bit and gets in my rib cage. And I'm struggling, honestly. I mean, I only discovered later that I had fractured my rib. And I'm recovering, and Dada is saying, "Tu champion hai re, tu champion." I said, "I can't talk." So I'm struggling to talk. I've broken my rib. And he said, "Tu champion hai, tu khelega." I said, "Let me recover."
Now, you wanted to open the batting in the 2003 World Cup, and he wanted to open the batting in the 2003 World Cup as well. So how did you resolve that?
It got resolved. You saw on TV who batted at number 3, didn't you?
But
You're still asking that question.
the first
because
couple
there's
of
a
practice matches, I batted 4.
There's a
It's all practice matches because he was never up for practice matches.
There is a reference in the book to him batting at 3 or 4 in the warm-up games, and expressing a desire to open the batting in the main World Cup.
Is it who's Sachin's desire? It's always been the desire. And anytime you asked him to bat at 4, he will tell you, I'll do it, but I'm better off opening.
But you let him bat at 4 in the NatWest Trophy.
Yeah, I did a few times and we requested him. Even in the World Cup, till Anil came, in the practice matches, we had decided that he'll bat at number 4. Till Anil came before the start of the tournament and said, if we have to do well, we need runs at the top. And he felt that the best way was to get him to open, and that's when we decided that we'll open. John Wright was there with his tongue half out, still not agreeing to it that he should open. But he opened and he had a great World Cup.
Two of you had another very interesting partnership together. Not at Sydney, where you put on 353 together, but in a game where scoring 100 was difficult. And that was Mumbai 2004, when he was barely able to grip the bat because the elbow had started to come up again. And both of you put on 100 runs.
In fact, yesterday I was telling that was probably, apart from the Sydney 300-run partnership, the one at Wankhede and the one at Eden Gardens in 2002 against West Indies in the second innings. He got 100, I got 100. But we saved the test match. If we wouldn't have had that partnership, we would have probably lost the test match. I think, yeah, Wankhede was probably the worst wicket. I don't think so there was a wicket, in fact.
We are in Mumbai.
Doesn't matter, but I don't think so that there was a wicket, because the match finished in 2.5 days. The first day, hardly there was any game played, but I think more than that partnership, the way we played in that partnership was important. Even on the wicket where stroke play was difficult, both of us were getting boundaries and we were able to dominate the Australian bowling attack. So I think for me, I've always mentioned that is a match winning or a match saving partnership is more important than just having numbers. I think that partnership was very memorable.
Am I allowed to take some credit for that as well, for making Lakshman bat at 3 in that innings and batting lower down?
And you thought Rahul Dravid is this good boy, right? Go on. You sent him up at
No, I think, yeah, we promoted Lax because I was batting and they saw that wicket was sort of really turning.
So you thought you'd rather
much
stay
better.
than he goes
Yeah,
out to
yeah,
bat.
I mean, it's
I know you don't want to put it that way, but it
No.
seems that way. The wicket was turning, so I sent him up.
Yeah, so I'll bat lower down when it turns more. No, but no, because I just felt we needed someone who could play positively, and I was going to go out there and try and block the hell out of it. So at least Lax would go and play positively, play some shots along with Sachin. And yeah, it was a brilliant partnership, and it's a great test match to win because defending 104 in the last innings, it was an incredible test match, and they added what that partnership was the one that changed the game.
There's a lot of talk in the book about the atmosphere in the team. A lot of you seem to place a lot of store on atmosphere in the team, and you talk about how it was when John Wright was the coach and how it was when Gary Kirsten was the coach and how it was therefore when Greg Chappell was the coach. Does that make such a difference? Because finally when you go out onto the field, it's you, right? So did that make such a difference that a coach could ensure, VVS talks about coming in 2006 into the side and seeing the atmosphere was completely different? Does that make such a difference?
It does, because in the end, when you're going out to bat, you want to go with a relaxed frame of mind because already there's so much of expectation from you. You're having a huge responsibility. You're representing the entire country. And I've always maintained cricket is not just a sport. It's a religion in our country. It's a passion for each and every Indian. So already there's a lot of, not pressure, but expectations. So when you go out, you have to go with a relaxed frame of mind. Only then can you actually go out and play with a free mind because cricket ultimately is a game where you have to enjoy. It is a sport. And it's not a job or it's not a profession. So until and unless you're not enjoying that, you will not be able to play to your potential. So I always respected that. And there were times, when, especially during 2006, yeah, it was definitely the toughest period for me as far as the dressing room atmosphere is concerned.
Sachin, you write in the book about saying that you didn't want Chappell with you in the 2007 World Cup. You've mentioned in the book that you would have been better off if you'd not been there in the 2007 World Cup.
Yeah, I've written that in my book, and the only reason I felt was I agree with Lakshman that the atmosphere could have been better. It wasn't a healthy atmosphere. The atmosphere has to be such in the dressing room where it brings the best out of you in the middle. And I felt that wasn't happening, and then the environment was very negative, I felt, and it was just a downfall from there on. So I thought maybe, if we travel without that, it would definitely change the atmosphere in the dressing room. And I also said that we senior players are willing to take all the responsibility and will manage the team.
Was 2007 the lowest point for all four of you, or were there others?
I guess when you play I guess 16 years or 20 years of first class cricket, you're going to find a lot of ups and downs. I mean, if I were to look at my career over, I guess, the 20 years that I played first class cricket in, there were some really good moments and there were some tough moments. And 2007, for me, especially as a captain, was a really tough moment. It was a really difficult time as well for me, just in terms of not qualifying for the World Cup. But I guess 7 years later, when you move on from a lot of these things, you realize that there are also some pretty good times that you've had, and there are some ups and there's some downs, and that's the way sport is, and that's the way I guess life is.
Was for you the lowest point as well? 2007?
Yeah, not qualifying for the World Cup was very, very disappointing because I didn't know whether I would make it to the World Cup in 2007. And then when I did, I thought we had a great side to get to the end. Unfortunately, we didn't. I think we had the strongest side in 2007 for the World Cup in the West Indies, but obviously couldn't win. But we had some good things happening after that, winning in England when Rahul was captain, those test series after 25, 26 years. And it really felt good because, yes, World Cup's good, it's one-day cricket, but going away and winning in England and in those conditions was very, very satisfying. So we had tough times, we had some good times, but then as Rahul said, it was tough. It was probably toughest for me, but that's the way it goes.
There's a lot in the book about these four people playing cricket together, and that's one of the more enjoyable things. We've all watched it from a television screen sometimes, from far away sometimes, but they had a lot of fun, and you gave us a lot of fun as well. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, on final time, Rahul Dravid, Sourav Ganguly, VVS Lakshman. Thank you very much, gentlemen. VVS, I think they want you to wait, Sourav, they want you to wait for a photo opportunity with the four of you together. Now, who in the crowd's counting the number of test runs here? This is not bad, is it? Well played. Sachin, I'm afraid you're going to have to sit on because it's your book after all. But I'm going to invite two other people now who feature in the book a great deal. If you look upon it as a blockbuster movie, there's always the wife and there's always the doting elder brother. The elder brother can do no wrong in the movies, right? And I think in this story, the elder brother can do no wrong as well. And I think as you read the book, the person who comes out really strongly, solid behind the scenes, but there at all times, is Ajit Tendulkar. How many hours have both of you spent talking batting? Sachin, how many hours have the two of you spent talking batting?
Well, even after my last innings, we spent talking about how I got out and those kind of things. But, over the years, we've discussed more and more, I would say. There were more and more things to talk about and various pressures, like even Rahul mentioned and all the guys, all three mentioned that playing at international level, you have a lot of pressure. You have people expecting something special from you. And for that, I needed strong support. And that support was Ajit.
There was another support as well. She's wearing a little orange top when she first saw this 17-year-old. 17, huh? 17-year-old. Just imagine, what were you doing when you were 17? And she saw this guy, and this 17-year-old at an airport and said, right, that's the man. Anjali? What were you doing going after a 17-year-old?
Okay, first, let me say one thing. Sachin often tells me, just once I want to put you in the middle of a cricket field with, thousands of people around screaming and get somebody to bowl fast at you, For me, this is equivalent to that, this level of stress talking in front of everyone. And you asked me about
17. I mean,
Listen,
there you are. He's a 17-year-old kid.
Okay, I didn't know he was 17 or what.
He looked 12.
I didn't even know who he was.
You didn't know who he was.
I didn't know. My friend is here, Aparna. She was with me when I went.
And
to
she
the-
said, shh, Sachin.
No, she told me, don't you know this is the wonder boy of Indian cricket and you
Wonder
know,
boy.
he's
Okay.
just scored 100, youngest Indian to score 100. I didn't care what he was, who he was. I had no interest in cricket. I saw him. I thought he was really cute,
I didn't have any interest in medicine either.
and I ran after him.
And you ran after him. Did you just say that? Did I just hear you say that?
We were in those days at the airport. There was a viewing gallery, so I was actually looking for my mum, who was supposed to have landed from England.
Oh, you
But-
planned it that way.
No, I did.
Oh, okay.
I just saw him and I told Aparna, who's this guy? He's so cute. And then I forgot about my mother. We ran down and I ran after him like screaming, Sachin, Sachin. Yeah, he's so cute.
You forgot about your mother. She's sitting there. Did she forget about you?
And the funny thing is, Ajit and Nitin were there with him, and Sachin was so embarrassed that this girl is, running after me and screaming my name. So he was only looking down. He didn't even look at me. He like quietly looked down and got into the car,
The only thing I looked was the color of her t-shirt.
Which was orange.
which he remembered when I met him for the first
And
time.
I thought you were going to wear orange today. And then you picked up the phone and called him.
Well, now
It was just
I was studying medicine. I was in my final year, so I go to college the next day, and by then I had been told he's a cricketer. And my friend Mufi, he was studying medicine with me, but he also used to play cricket. I caught him. I said, Mufi, you have to do one thing for me in this. You have to get me this Sachin Tendulkar's number. So his cousin was their mother. He got me the number, and see, this is what I say is destiny. I called Sachin, and Sachin never used to pick up the phone. In those days, there were no mobiles, nothing. But that day, he picked up the phone. And I said, hi, my name is Anjali. You don't know who I am. I saw you at the airport yesterday and all. He said, yeah, I remember. I saw you. I said, what was I wearing? He said, yeah, you were wearing an orange t-shirt. So then I know that, yes, he had
How
noticed
you know
me.
I said orange t-shirt.
So that's, destiny.
Destiny that you picked up the phone and called him.
Yes. Why
It doesn't
not?
feel like destiny to me.
But before that also, a couple of times we were sort of meant to meet. When he had gone with the Star Cricket Club to England, I was in England. And somebody there, my uncle told me, come, there's this, Indian team is there and they'll feel so happy to see another Indian girl. Why don't you come and meet them? And I said, I'm not interested in cricket. I don't want to come, so I didn't go. The other time, when he scored his 100, I was in England and my dad said, come, you have to see this boy Sachin. He scored the youngest player to score 100. And I said, but Daddy, I'm not interested in cricket. I don't want to see this boy. So there were two other times when if I had seen him, it might have happened. I might have been chasing a 15-year-old instead.
And I thought this is going to be a difficult conversation. Do you realize you're just stroking it beautifully off the front foot? And do you know who was most hassled by all this? Was still a fairly young man who wanted Sachin Tendulkar to become the best cricketer in the world. And there was this woman. When you first took him to Ramakant Achrekar, and Ramakant Achrekar said, bring him back later. You took him back again. Was it just love? My brother, please take a look at my brother? Or did you think that time, kaitari ahe special?
Of course, the talent first, because before taking him to sir, I had watched him in the society where he used to play in the playground. And I was convinced of that. And that's the reason I took him to Achrekar sir. At that age, it's very little to decide, what the talent is, because you don't look at it from technical point of view or something. But I think bowler is always posing a question to you and you have to answer, batsman has to have answer. And Sachin always had answer for every question posed to him.
What I found interesting was he went to the coach and said, just pretend that you're not looking because he's under stress if you watch him bat.
Yeah, obviously, because he was used to not being watched by anyone, except I used to watch him from my balcony and not directly. So I knew that he could be under a lot of pressure. Everything was new to him. He wasn't even having his own pads or bat or gloves. I think bat he was using was a tennis ball. tennis cricket bat.
You had a little Kashmir willow bat.
My sister had gone to Kashmir, and she had brought me one DSE bat. I still remember a tennis ball bat. So I used that for quite some time, and then.
Tell me, what's
eventually-
your side of the story? Did you know that he had quietly told the coach, pretend not to watch so that he feels relieved?
No, I had no idea. I absolutely had no clue. I was just told that get in the nets again, bat the way you like, feel free to do whatever you want. But I had no idea that he had gone and he had requested Acharya sir that, please give him another chance, and this time you don't stand behind the net.
Because he had never played with the hard ball, and in the compound he was used to play the aerial shot because it was safer to do that. Because there are a lot of trees around and then you don't get caught. So he tried doing that there, but it took some time basically.
You know, what I find fascinating about this story, and it's mentioned in the book as you go along, that Ajit Tendulkar was a club cricketer. A lot of us are club cricketers. And having been one, I know how much you know as a club cricketer. And yet here was a club cricketer advising the world's finest batsman on how to bat. I mean,
But
this,
at that time he wasn't finest.
even after he did, I'm fascinated by the story of the 241 in Sydney that we spoke to VVS about. It was your suggestion that he doesn't play the shot that's getting him out.
Well, the way he got out, he got out in a different manner every time he went out. So there was nothing basically I could have spoken to him about the technique part of it. Because if you get out in a same fashion, then you can really say this particular fault because of which you are getting out. And secondly, I thought it was playing on his mind that the quicker the runs come, the better. And he was going for that little aggression. He is a type of batsman who, according to me, who would first think of scoring run rather than defending the ball. He would first think of getting the run. And if the ball is too good, then only he will block it. At that time, I thought more than the technique, that strategy was to spend as much time as he can at the crease. And then slowly the runs will come. But later on, what he did of avoiding the playing shots on the offside was entirely his strategy.
He threw you a challenge, didn't he? You had a long telephone conversation before that Sydney test, and he threw you a challenge about not getting out.
I was not in the right frame of mind. I was batting really well, and something which kept getting me out was, I was going in the overdrive, and I decided that, this match I'm not going to go in that overdrive gear at all. Come what may, I'm batting 100 runs or 200 runs, whatever. I'm not going to play certain shots, and I felt Australian strategy was to bowl away from me and make me play away from the body. And that is how in Melbourne I got out. Melbourne, in the first innings I got out, the first ball down the leg, got behind to Brett Lee. But in the second innings I was batting really well, and then the strategy by Australians was to bowl away, and I went for a big drive, where the ball wasn't there to be driven, but I still went for it. So I sat back, I had a nice chat with John Wright. I spoke to him for quite some time over the phone. And one thing he told me was, the bowlers are not getting you out. There hasn't been a single good ball where you can say, okay, fine, you couldn't do much about it. It's just your shot selection. So be patient. Don't look at the scoreboard. Just play session by session.
And then Sachin desires that I read something from page 272. It's called A Welcome Phone Call. All in all, I was in a bad state after the 2007 World Cup. I was not enjoying my cricket at all, and I was thinking about retiring, until I received some encouraging words from Viv Richards. Out of the blue, he called me in India from the West Indies, and we spoke for about 45 minutes. He assured me that there was a lot of cricket left in me and insisted that I shouldn't even think of stopping playing. Viv was my hero when I was growing up, and he will always be a hero no matter what success I've achieved myself. We've got to know each other well over the years, and whenever we meet, he treats me like his younger brother, and I treat him like my older brother. I've always respected him and his views, so when he chose to call me and spend all that time convincing me to carry on, it meant a great deal to me. When I finally got back into some good form and put together a very satisfying century in Sydney at the beginning of 2008, I made a point of calling Viv to thank him for his crucial support. And the story doesn't end there, because Viv Richards couldn't be here, of course, but he sent a message for this evening. Let's take it. It's a bit like going out to bat.
Well, I guess there's so much can be said about an individual. Well, I guess there's so much can be said about an individual, who, in my opinion, would have achieved so much, where batsmanship is basically concerned. You cannot get any better, especially what he would have achieved over the years. Certainly, I doubt whether in my lifetime I'm going to ever see that sort of a feat repeated. It's just the benchmark, I guess, for any young batsman who are looking to make their way. That example, in my opinion, you can't get any better than that. Well, I guess there's so much can be said.
And there's more, and you can hear the whole amount, the whole section later on. We've got just one little bit to go, and you're wondering why I've not been talking to Sachin all this time, right? I've talked to Rahul and VVS and Saurav, and I've talked to Vasu Paranspe and Sunil Gavaskar and everybody, because we're going to get him one-on-one. Sachin, about your book, and you yourself, come on. You've met many journalists now over the years, and you've met many television people over the years, but not quite like that first journalist who came to your house?
Yeah, I mean, you spoke about some girl coming to my house. It hadn't happened in 17 years. So when I was a bit worried, and I said, how do you come home? I said, you pretend to be a journalist, come home, we'll pretend that we are doing an interview, and in the interim, I said, okay, I mean, she's come home for the first time, I can't just let her go like that. I'd returned from England at that time, and all the chocolates that I'd carried, I'd polished them off. There was just one chocolate, couple of sticks left, so I broke them into small, small pieces and spread them all over the plate. That was the only thing that I had, so I mean, but if I'm not mistaken, I think my sister-in-law, as we call it, ki antennas upar gaye uske, and something happened. I mean, she said, was she really a journalist or something else?
There's a lot of journalists here who knew you from the time you were 12, 13 years old. I saw some of them there. Did you ever get a chocolate when you went to his house? The one thing, Sachin, that comes through time and time again in the book, and there's lots of your great innings, but something that people don't always realize is the number of times you played with pain. It's something that keeps coming back. Playing with pain, there's an injury somewhere, there's a groin, there's an ankle, there's a shin, there's a back. There was a time when every time you got an injury, we'd learn a little more about the human body. Is that an inherent aspect of growing up in the game, that you learn to play with pain?
Somebody told me I could write a book on medicine, all the injuries, because I don't think from top to bottom, some or the other part has always been injured. And it's not just with me, but I think all the sportsmen, they carry niggles, and you learn to deal with pain. And you find ways to go out there and fight, give your best. There are tough moments at time. I mean, I remember I was batting with VVS Lakshman in Mumbai against Australia when I had had my tennis elbow surgery, or it was maybe before that. I don't remember exactly whether it was before or after, but I was batting in the morning, and in the first over itself, my elbow started hurting so badly. And the first 2 test matches I hadn't played. So I just prayed to God, please don't let me break down right now. After this match, I'll do whatever, but not this match. So I quickly asked for a couple of painkillers, and I bit them to pieces, thinking that, this is my medical knowledge. But thinking that, if I bit them, then my system would absorb the painkiller much faster, and I'd be pain-free or little less pain in my elbow. And those are the moments where you look back and you sort of, thank God for not letting me break down there, because after that I had to have a major surgery which kept me away for almost 4.5 months. But all the sportsmen go through that, and mine wasn't, I think, exceptional thing.
When your name first appeared in a newspaper, you were reprimanded. When your name first appeared in a newspaper.
Yeah, the person who reprimanded me is sitting here, Achrekar sir. I was playing my first inter-schools match, and I had scored 24 runs, and I was told that, you score 30 runs, your name will appear in the newspaper. Wouldn't you like to see your name in the newspaper tomorrow morning? So this guy was filling up score sheets, and he said, best idea. From extras, we'll add 6 more runs in your total, which will make 30, and we'll deduct those 6 runs from extras, and we are not increasing the actual total. And I didn't know. I mean, I was hardly 11 or 12, and I said, okay, fine. If you think that is fine, then do it. So next morning, sir asked me, "Ki kai re kiti runs keles tu?" So I didn't know what to answer to him, and I said, sir, 24. My score sheet and all that, how does it say 30? So that's when I told him that, sir, this guy had asked me to do it, that's why I did that. He said, if you like to see your name in the newspaper, then you do it yourself. Don't get out on 24, continue batting. It was a important lesson for me, because after that, I figured out that, if I wanted something special to happen in life, one had to work hard for it.
He didn't let you watch the Harris Shield final. You were not playing in that, you were playing the Guile Shield. And you went to watch it, and he said, no, you don't watch other people play, you practice and get other people to come to watch you to play.
Yeah, invariably after my school hours, sir would ask me to play a practice match for his club, where I only went and batted in the second half at number 4 again. I wish cricket was like that without fielding, it worked really well. But I missed that match, and our senior team, Harris Shield, Shardashram team was playing finals at Wankhede Stadium. And I went there to support the team. So I supported the team the whole day, and after the game, Achrekar sir was right there in front of me. He hadn't seen me, but I said, it's rude not to go and wish him. So I went and I said, sir, namaste. So I said, you were supposed to play a match. Why didn't you go there? So I said, sir, I thought I would come and support our team. My school team is playing, senior team is playing. I should come and support. So I got reprimanded there, and then, sir, it was really upsetting, because I was really upset. I said, I'm supporting my team, and why is sir so upset? So sir said, you should not be clapping for others. You should be out there in the middle, and the rest of the world should be clapping for you. So it was a big lesson learned again. With sir, so many lessons were learned in life. Each and every moment in life, you look back and you say that sir did this to me, and sir taught me all these things. So you always connect with all those things.
As it turned out, a few people did end up clapping for you over your career, didn't they? There's some insights into batsmanship that I'm sure a lot of people here would be interested in saying. There's one particular thing, I think it's page 207 that caught my eye, where you talk about when you're confident, you play the game from the non-strikers. You always play the game from the opposite end. And that when you're not feeling good, you play the game from your end. It's an interesting thought that, you explain that in the book, but I'd love people to hear it as well, that when you're confident, you're playing it from the non-strikers and you're playing it from the opposite end.
That's what, being in that zone is. When your mind is at the striker's end and you're constantly thinking about your technique, your head balance and, your positioning, all those kind of things, 50% of the things are happening at the other end, which are more important. You are missing those things. And I felt when my mind was at the opposite end, where I was picking each and everything what the bowlers were trying to do, I felt the results were much better. And the results were not so great when my mind was stuck at the striker's end. And so is the case with any bowler, I feel. Your mind has to be at the opposite end and not worrying about your run-up or your no balls. So I felt that something which helped me throughout my career. I was not always able to do that because, sometimes even my mind was at the striker's end. Cricket is always played at its best when the minds are at the opposite ends, I felt.
Very interesting, because I'm not sure every one of us quite approach the game that way. You won't understand how other people think about the game, of course. The story goes on. I'm going to only ask you about two things that happened towards the end of your career. 2007, when you called Viv, you talk in your book about the effect of the headline, Endulkar. I actually thought at that time, I looked at that headline and I said, wow, may it come up every day, because then you'll never stop playing. But it hurt you, Endulkar.
I think we sometimes have this tendency of giving importance to someone who's got nothing to do with Indian cricket. I don't think that happens in their own countries, where our players say something and it becomes a headline there. So I felt it was unfair after playing for 17 years. I've gone out and given it all. I bumped into the same person in South Africa. I'm talking about Ian Chappell, and I bumped into him. We were in Durban and I was working out. Nitin Patel, my physio, was also there, and Ian came and he told me that, so this is the secret of your success. I said, Ian, you change sides very quickly, and conveniently. Your same article in 2007 said that, I need to have a closer look at myself in the mirror. And I become International Cricketer of the Year. I've not changed anything, but you guys keep changing all the time. You either be on this side or that side, So that's what I told him, and it was one of those things which I had to sort of let him know, because when things were going well, I was received well.
It led to some of the happiest days in your career, finishing with 2011. When the World Cup had come to India in 1987, Sunil Gavaskar was playing, Dilip Vengsarkar, Ravi Shastri were playing. You were a ball boy, weren't you, for one of the games?
Yes, I was, and I precisely remember I was sitting right in front of the dressing room. I was rather positioned there because they said, "Zawal bus tikde ani bug players kashe prepare hota hai match sati," and all that. And I also remember at that time, Mr. Gavaskar had invited me to the dressing room. Still remember, I think he was in the far end of the dressing room, and I met few players. Most of the guys were outside the dressing room watching the game. But that was my first entry to the Indian dressing room as such, an unofficial entry. But I cannot forget that, because, literally 2.5 years from then, I was part of the Indian team. And I was a ball boy then, and then got to pick a lot of things at that time. But just being there inside the dressing room, as we say, that my collar was tight.
And then in your last test match, your son was a ball boy. It's almost as if the story is coming.
You're making me say something here.
No, it's almost like the story is coming to an end, isn't it?
No, my son was supposed to play his school match, which got cancelled for some reason. And then he turned up, because I remember
didn't know he was going to be the ball boy.
No, I didn't know. There was a discussion at home before I played the last game, whether Arjun comes to watch me play or he plays his own match. And I said, I think to play your own match is more important.
His father's finishing one of the greatest careers of all time, and his father tells him, you go and play your match.
I think if he has to become a cricketer, then he has to play cricket, not watch cricket. And in retrospect, even he will think that yes, that was a wise decision. Though, the match got cancelled, nobody was prepared for that, and somehow, Arjun actually took a cab and turned up there. And when I saw him there, it was a pleasant surprise.
And you write about how he told the doorkeeper who he was to let him into the ground. Your biggest moment, you often say, and you mentioned that right at the end of the book, you said that your biggest moment was winning the World Cup. It's something you had dreamt of. And while the World Cup was being won, you were not watching. And you were not allowing Sehwag to watch either.
I was a little superstitious, I could say that, because also in Ahmedabad when we were playing Australia, UV and I think Raina was batting or the MS was batting.
You forget too?
No, because I was not watching. I was, inside the dressing room and I had put my head down the massage table. And Nitin Patel was working on my back, and also Amit Shah, our masseur, was also working on my neck and all that. And Viru was sitting next to me. So Viru actually told Amit that tu time waste kar raha hai, wo so gaya already. Not realizing that I was praying. I was praying to God that, whatever the result is, you do what is best for Indian team. And I was praying, and I was awake. Every time batsman scored a boundary or took a couple of runs or a single, I knew exactly what was happening. So I continued that in the World Cup final as well. When I got out and Viru was there, I said, "Tu hilega nahi, yahan se mere saath baithega." And we continued praying. So in the last stages, Viru said, "Aji, mere ko jaane do yaar, bahar thoda to dekhne raha hai." I said, "You are not moving. Baad mein video pe jitna dekhna hai, dekh le. Yahan se hilega nahi last run hone tak." So unfortunately, I missed that last moment. But it was all worth waiting
It wasn't
for.
unfortunate. You wanted it to be like that. You didn't
Yes,
let the
yes,
poor
yes,
fellow
sir,
see it
but
either.
I missed that moment, watching it live while I was actually there inside the stadium. But I was praying.
Praying and God is a recurrent motive in this book. As I was going through, it keeps coming again and again. Praying and God. And the other day I was at your house and you said you've got 120 Ganesha idols in your house. When you play a cricket ball, it's you. And yet, I find this fascination with prayer and God recurring in your life so often.
I've been brought up like that, and I believe in that strongly. I think there are certain things which the Almighty controls, and we can only go out and give our best. And that's how I was told as a child, and I continued doing so, and I will continue to do so. It has given me inner strength. It has given a new dimension to my life, and then a sense of belief where, I need to go out and try my best, and the Almighty will take care of me.
And may it long be that way. Is there a prayer that you have for the rest of your life? You keep asking. In the book you say, when I got out, you prayed and said, why did it take so long to get the 100? You have these conversations with God. Is there a conversation?
I did so. I mean, I actually, if you see, when I got my 100th 100, I mean, it was not more of a celebration, but I was actually asking the Almighty that why did you make me wait so long? And why did you make me go through all this? Where I respected the game, I worked as hard as anyone in the team, and I was constantly on my toes. I never took anything for granted. But maybe that was one lesson in cricket which I hadn't learned. Even after scoring 99 hundreds, to get to the 100th one is not easy. You still have to go out and push yourself. And I was made to do that, but eventually it felt great.
It's a great journey. It's a great journey, ladies and gentlemen, and it's up there. Sachin Tendulkar playing it my way. I could talk to him for days and months and years like I have all my life. But congratulations. I might as well tell you that...
I would just like to thank the guys who've helped me put this book together. It's been a mega effort. It's taken us 3 years, but even more so, the last 8 months were really taxing, and I had to be focused. And along with me, the team who really pushed themselves hard was my wife Anjali, brother Ajit, Boria, Aparna, Amit, in putting the book together. That was the first innings. The second innings was to have this event, a successful event, and the way I want it. I'd like to thank Vinod, Manoj, DNA team, and all the sponsors. Last but not the least, my cricket mates and all my friends present in this room. By you making it here this evening, I think the evening has become really, really special, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. And then thank you, my friend Harsha, for
No,
being here and doing
it's a pleasure.
wonderful job.
He is pretty good at thank you speeches, isn't he? I must make one final announcement, Sajjan, because you stand for records in India and you keep breaking records. On pre-order, Playing It My Way is now the largest selling non-fiction pre-order book. And just needs a few more, to be the largest outside of pre-order as well. You made 100 hundreds, so just added
And I
one
think-
more
I
zero
think
to
for
the
that,
pre-order.
the last record that you're talking about, I think for that, I think I'd like to congratulate Hachette India as well. I think they've been remarkable.
Thomas, wave your hand at us. Where are you, Thomas? Wave your hand. Well done. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. There are books pre-signed by Sachin available at the counter. That is just outside. I hope you enjoyed the evening. It's an evening, as I said, that could have gone on forever. But even Sachin's innings end sometimes. So we'll stop here and do join us for a drink at the end. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks.
I have known you, what impresses me the most about you, Sachin, is how dedicated you were to your cause. And that is what all of us in many generations of Indians will learn, and you will motivate them. I could not